So yeah, I don't particularly like debating. So I'd much rather have a conversation on stage or or uh, or um yeah, on stage or on the podcast.
Yeah, and is there any type of question or theme you keep returning to on the podcast because it feels just super fascinating or kind of unresolved that you just love asking an elusive people that similar question or theme just to see their elusive perspectives on it?
Yeah, I think yeah, yeah. Well, there was for a while I liked talking to different people about the notion of offense since I've written about it in the new book, which I should hold up. It would be crazy not to the war on science that just last week. But the fact that people somehow think being offended matters and somehow gives them special rights to things is something I've talked to a lot of people about. I've talked in the early days to my friend Christopher Hitchens, Stephen Fry, other people, because it's so important to counter this ridiculous notion of somehow being offended matters. It gives you some rights to anything, or that you should have a right to protect yourself from being offended. None of which is true. Um, Also, I've done a few podcasts about public issues, um, Ukraine, for example. I've done a variety of different podcasts with them, and Noam Chomsky and I have talked a lot about politics. But of course, I've just completed a mammoth 20 podcasts in 20 days with 20 of the authors from the War on Science, talking about issues related to what's going on in academia. So that's certainly a topic I've returned to a lot in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, I guess what were your biggest takeaways during those multiple elusive dialogues?
Well, I think, I mean, since I'd edited the book with these authors and I knew what they'd written, I think what the takeaway is that the threats are diverse and many and don't depend upon discipline, um, and um, and need to get the attention of the public and to get the attention of our colleagues. That there are that of course that there's an external war on science in the United States, especially coming from this current government, but internally there's a culture war that has really infiltrated science and scholarship more than I think most people realize. When I talk to people, each of these people, I'm often amazed at the examples that you would never believe could exist and how standard science has been hijacked and simple scientific notions that are true are now, not allowed to be talked about. It's scary. And so anyway, I think I encourage your listeners to go to the podcast and listen to some of those 20 different ones, ranging from medicine to classics to mathematics, even, and how ideas that somehow mathematics is somehow needs to be decolonized, as if the power series for pi depends upon who's saying it or when. It's just ludicrous notions, and how people have been canceled for saying there are two sexes biologically, which is true biologically. And it's just, or even for asking questions about whether indigenous knowledge is appropriate in an astronomy class, and whether and people could be canceled just for asking those questions, and the fear that's happening in the community, and the and the and the attacks on medical knowledge, and which is really bad because people's lives depend upon it. When medical organizations would rather virtue signal about issues of social justice than teach young doctors medicine is scary.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic that this war would subside over time?
Well, all things will pass. It'll subside over time, but the longer it goes on, the more the country, the nation, and in some sense, science worldwide will be hurt. I'm optimistic, otherwise I wouldn't have written the book or edited the book because I would have thought it was a lost cause. That perhaps the peak is gone because the public is beginning to realize how crazy some of this stuff is, and that's slowly beginning to affect even academic leaders who seem to be the last ones to get the message that virtue signaling is ridiculous and defending free speech, free inquiry, and scientific integrity is what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I think in the long run, it's gonna subside, like most things. But it's already caused other damage because now it's encouraged the government in the United States to attack all of science as if it's all left wing woke, and that's hurting a tremendous amount of research in the country. So it's already hurting the country in many ways. And yeah, so I'm thinking that things, pendulums swing, and this will swing too. But hopefully, by speaking out and being having people from well known people inside of academia and many disciplines and many different political persuasions. So it can't be viewed as a right wing attack or left wing attack here, the war that we're talking about. Um, uh, I think hopefully we can encourage academics to begin to act and the public to begin to know what's going on, and that I believe that education is the way to change things.
Yeah, forgive me if I missed this detail, but are you saying this attack is coming more from a political angle and not anything that's people would probably assume it's more religious of an angle that would
No,
attack?
this is pure politics,
Pure
pure
politics.
secular religion. There have been many attacks on science from religion over the years, and I've spoken about it, of course. And on the right wing, there are still right wing attacks on science from religion as well. I mean, efforts to stifle teaching of evolution or impose religious dogma. But this is secular dogma. This is the claim that racism and sexism are ingrained in every activity that humans make, including science, and that if in some discipline there are fewer than people of a certain gender or sex or race than there are in the background population, that must be due to sexism or racism. Nonsense.
Well, do you think a part of a perhaps issue with the perception on science right now is how it's communicated? Do you think that should be communicated in a different way or
Well,
taught that's
there are a lot of science communicators out there, more than when I began 30 or 40 years ago doing this. So there's lots of ways people can get their science, and so there's lots of neat resources online. I don't think that's as possible. That's the problem as much as the strong efforts from outside science in one way or another. Um, uh, um, uh, um, um, in one way or another to politicize it, and I think that's really the biggest problem. It's not so much. I mean, people are fat. Well, the media puts down science, uh, and makes us. They constantly think that people aren't interested in it, but they are. People are fascinated. Uh, people are fascinated by science, but for some reason, TV people don't think that's true, and so um, they won't often produce science on TV unless it's hyped, on aliens or something like that. And yeah, and I think to some extent, science fiction gives people a misperception of how science is done. Like every major problem can be solved in 3 hours if you just work at it, and that's a real problem as well too. And I think people, for example, don't realize what an amazing thing it was to develop a vaccine in less than a year or two, where it usually takes 30 years. For some people, a year may seem so long, but in actual fact, compared to how long it takes to make major developments, that's nothing.
Yes, I remember thinking that because during the COVID times, I remember thinking, "We came up with the vaccine so quick. How long would this have taken if it was, say, to the year 2000 versus 2020 or the year 2010 versus 2020?"
Oh, it would have
Do you
been.
think that woulda
We didn't have mRNA technology in 2020, which is one of the key things that helped develop vaccines. Not the only thing. Um, uh, um, a- and a- and even though now in the states, the idiot in charge of Health and Human Services is cutting down all research on mRNA vaccines, which is ridiculous in the extreme. Um, but yeah, I mean, and the ability to we wouldn't been able to genetically, we wouldn't be able to do the genome. We wouldn't, or not the genome, but just sequence uh, the virus itself. And so, I mean, none of that technology existed in easily in 20 years ago.